Kick us off, boy.
Oi, oi. Good greetings, fun friends and fellow fighters, and welcome back to another episode of the Strictly Fighters podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jason Money Madewell. Now, incidentally, we've reached a little mini milestone, guys. This is our 10th show. So for 10 consecutive weeks, we've been poisoning the airwaves with our vile bollocks and brainwashing your children with our psycho babble. But to celebrate the occasion, as those who are watching and not just listening to the audio version will have noticed, we have our very first guest amongst our ranks tonight, Emma Wentzel. Welcome. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Jason. How are you?
I'm well. And Sean and Craig are here too.
Oh, fuck. Imagine.
Hi.
Couldn't
Hi,
get them
guys.
to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the show with us, Em, and congrats on the historic achievement of being our first guest and the first one to crack the nod.
Thank you.
Now, Emma is a very close mate of mine and also happens to be a real high-level, world-class, accomplished practitioner of Goju-Ryu karate. She is a 4th-Dan black belt. Now, Em, I wanted to introduce you by reading your list of credentials and achievements, but it's 6 fucking pages long.
I stopped reading. Like, I was like, at what point is this going to be like UFC champ? Like, I'm waiting for it.
So by virtue
you.
of that fact, what I'd like to do is rather hand it over to you, and you can give us the executive summary or the full version of who you are, where you're from, and what your journey in karate and martial arts looks like. Where did it start? Where has it taken you? Where are you now? Yeah.
All right. So I started karate not as a child. That was amazing.
That was the pop of the cork of my proper 12, notorious Irish whiskey.
He will get Conor McGregor to mention him one day. Just anyway, carry on.
I'm waiting for that. I'm absolutely waiting for that. I have no doubt.
So
I started karate actually when I was about 19, 20. And the reason I started was actually because a very close mate of mine, Tammy, she was a black belt at the time. And we were hanging out in the garden one day, and we were having a braai, and we were just chilling. And all of a sudden, she just kind of got up and was like, "Well, I want to show you guys what it is that I do," because she was kind of the only one that did karate across the board of friends that was there. So I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, sweet." And she demonstrated a kata called Sensei Emma. Now, from the moment she began this kata to the very end, I was absolutely obsessed. I didn't know what she was doing. I didn't know why she was doing what she was doing, but I was absolutely fascinated by these movements and the story that she was trying to tell, and this kind of imaginative battle that she was doing, essentially. So I decided about a month later, kind of went home, spoke to the folks. Yes, I still lived at home at that time, and said to them, "Listen, I want to start karate. This is what I want to do. I mean, I saw Tammy do this, and this is it. This is the one for me." So the very next year, albeit it was about a month later, I started in 2005, 2006, January 2005, 2006. And with that being said, I actually started at the same dojo that Jason was training at. Now, at that time, I think Jason was, what were you? Maybe blue belt, brown belt?
2006. Yeah, I was about I think I was a red belt. I think I was a red belt back then.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, he was relatively high in terms of the ranking and the hierarchy that comes along with karate. So from that, you kind of meeting him and becoming friends with him, we ended up spending quite a bit of time together. And whilst we spent time, I had kind of really encouraged him and implored him to please teach me all the katas that he knew. And by the virtue of that, he literally knew every single kata, I think, in the syllabus because of all his competitions at the time and his international travel himself. So we pulled a lot from one another. We got to train with each other. We got to do applications in bunkai with one another. And after that, it was just Jason was probably the one person who implored me to do so much research into kata. I am just by default, it seems, slightly obsessed with kata and bunkai, I would like to kind of attribute that to Jason and his knowledge and his performance, because I don't know if you guys have ever seen him do a kata.
I haven't.
I don't know.
No, actually, we should record that, Jay.
You haven't?
No, we have not. But I don't know if you've noticed, his head's
Because
already big.
that
So
is
keep going.
That was impressive.
Oh man. Well,
Yeah,
one day,
yeah,
Jay.
we
One
We should
day.
definitely record one for
yeah,
us.
so
That's
we're,
something. Sorry, so I think connection there. Yeah, that's something that when I was sorry to interrupt you there. When I was doing
no.
karate, the only tournament I ever did, I managed a bronze in kata. I was so impressed with myself when I managed to get that right. But this was at about yellow advanced. I don't know what you call it. Very low level, but I was really impressed with myself. The kata was something I really enjoyed.
You still have the medal.
Somewhere, dude. Somewhere. I should probably
Dig
pull
it
out.
up. Dig it up.
When you only have one medal, you generally keep it. I would highly recommend that.
I should probably put on all. Right?
You should. You should. I'll give half of that.
Oh man.
Last year, we've been imploring him to fix the wall behind him and do something with it for the last 4 weeks. So let's see one day. Maybe he'll oblige us.
I'm pretty lazy.
Nothing wrong.
Okay, so that's thanks for that introduction. Now tell us.
Annual shout
Tell us
out.
where. Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate that. Now tell us where you're at. So obviously, like I said, you're highly accomplished and highly acclaimed. Let's put it this way, guys. Emma's a fucking big deal in karate. So tell us why, Em. What have you done? Where have you been? What have you seen? Who have you fucked up?
So if you are making reference to tournament karate, I have spent a number of years competing and kind of, if I could call it, kind of mastering the tournament side of karate. I would like, just from the onset, not to kind of amalgamate the two. For me, in my mind, as an instructor of Goju karate, I would like to believe that there is a big difference between sport kumite, sport kata, and traditional kumite and traditional kata. Actually, let me not get sidetracked. So in terms of tournament karate, I started competing in 2008. It was a goal and a dream of mine to become a national champion in kata specifically, not necessarily kumite. I find it quite bizarre that I need to stop a couple inches away from somebody's face.
Quick segue, just so that all of our viewers are in tune and kind of understand where we're at. Can you give us a very, very brief description of what kata is and what kumite is?
Okay.
That would be helpful, yeah.
Kata is a sequence, or a collective sequence of movements designed to depict or show an imaginary fight against, or a fight against an imaginary opponent. Kata, in essence, what lies in kata is the teachings for real life combative self-defense. So everything you learn through kata should be applied directly to anything self-defense related or kumite related.
So they reference it in other martial arts. A lot of people might know it as forms. I think it's a very similar thing to forms, and ultimately it teaches you correct form, correct technique, and engenders muscle memory in a safe, practical way that allows you to perfect the movements, the art, the technique of your martial art in a safe and practical environment, basically, without getting your head smashed off every 3 seconds.
Would you say it almost compares to a dance form? Because it's the movement, it's the choreography that goes into it. I'm not saying it is dancing. I'm just saying, I mean, I'm married to a dancer, so I know the kind of work that goes into dancing.
No, absolutely. Yes, I suppose depending on what environment you're looking at. So if you are looking at it purely from a dojo perspective, and you're kind of converting that into a dance studio, then yes, you can take these choreographed movements and call it a karate. I would hate to say dance.
It's the karate arts.
Karate arts. There we go.
Nice. All right, cool.
Absolutely. And then so in contrast, kumite would be the actual fighting, right? Is that right? So
that's correct.
Okay.
That is correct. That is 1-on-1 or 1-on-2 or 1-on-3 or multiple different attackers engaging in proper.
Okay.
All right.
Cool. Okay, cool. Please proceed, Em, with your resume as such.
Do I have to? I feel like I've said enough. All right. So to cut things short, in 2019, I won my first national championships. Up until then, I had placed in the top 4 of the national leagues and national championships and international events, probably for about 8 or 9 years. So I was simply knocking on the door until I opened it, and that was that. And then this year, so that was I won national championship for seniors. I am now 35 years old, and I feel like I've qualified for the veteran division because the senior division is just too much. And I then went along and I won the national championships this year for the veteran division as well. I am a 3-time Sub-Saharan African champion for kata. I've competed at numerous world Goju-Ryu championships. I have been to the WKF World Championship once before. I was very honored to be selected for that. It was a wonderful experience. However, I didn't make it very far. But yeah, other than that,
and you're also obviously a 4th-Dan black belt, which everyone take note. Emma's been doing karate for 16 years. And you're also the head instructor of your own dojo, right?
Yes, I am. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
That's
Cool. So carry on.
So in terms traditionally, so that was sport related. So traditionally speaking, yes, I am a 4th-Dan. I like to go to Japan at least once a year to train with our Shihan Kai, who is based in Omagari in Japan, which is always a wonderful experience. I mean,
that's got to be magic.
It brings you back to earth. I mean, you don't wear shoes for like 10 days, which is incredible. Just walk along the streets. There's no cars. There's also no dustbins. Also no deodorant, which is disturbing considering we spend so long training. We spend 8 hours a day training karate, and
it's pretty humid there, right? Japan is an island, yeah.
It is. Oh. Well, it depends, yeah. So when we go, that's kind of June, July, August time. It does get quite cold. It does snow. It does snow.
Yeah, Japan is known for its snow. Yeah. I was going to say Kodak. Is it Kodak?
That's a camera.
That's a camera.
Yeah. What's the other one? Yes, that one. Yeah. Anyway.
Nice. Mount Fuji is famous.
Mount Fuji.
Famous picture of Mount Fuji.
Kodak. It was one of the camera brands.
Kodak and Star.
Cherry blossom trees. Yeah.
Beautiful scene.
Did you think it was called Mount Kodak?
I got confused.
Brilliant.
That was painful. All right.
So Em, thank you for that. Now that everyone knows the echelon of the company that we're sitting in, had to throw it in, boys. What we're going to do before we dive deep into the topic and martial art of karate tonight, we've got to do Legends League.
Mm-hmm.
So For those who don't know, and M, for your context, Legends League is basically a cool little fun tournament, hypothetical tournament that we put on every week. We've got a list of 50 of the top most famous legendary martial artists that have ever lived. We put them into a random draw generator, a random tournament generator. It spits out crazy matchups, and then we basically discuss who would fuck who up. Simple and as cool as that. So here we go. I have these.
Give us the names. Have you done it already?
Yeah, it's people like IP Man and stuff like that. Yeah.
IP Man. Oh man, Ip Man would just fuck you up for saying that.
Good old Ip Man.
He's doing cutter in his grave at the moment.
Yeah.
Right. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. Who do we have?
Oh, we've got Royce Gracie.
Yes.
Versus Brock Lesnar.
Oh.
So we have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu royalty versus a professional wrestler and former heavyweight UFC champion. What do we say?
Yeah,
but isn't
like massive?
Mm.
Hey, is he like?
He's a steroid fucking.
Yeah, I was just about to say how much roids has gone into him.
Yeah, this was pre-USADA days.
So I'll start because I'm the jiu-jitsu guy. So I would have to give it to Brock Lesnar. I would have to. The reason being, Brock Lesnar.
No.
if Brock wasn't a UFC guy, if he wasn't a mixed martial artist, fine, I would give it to Royce, or Royce, like the Brazilians call it.
So white, Sean.
But Brock
He's so
Lesnar
white.
He's heavy. He's also a wrestler. So remember, it takes more than just good jiu-jitsu to beat someone. If someone's a wrestler, they know how to fight on the ground as well. They know how to grapple. And I mean, Brock Lesnar has spent a lifetime wrestling. Even if it is for show business, he's a strong individual and he knows how to control people's bodies. Now, if you as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, you might be able to manage to stay alive for a certain amount of time. But again, if you're coming up with someone with Brock Lesnar's size and his ability to control someone on the ground, you might not lose against Brock Lesnar on the ground, but you're certainly not going to beat Brock Lesnar on the ground. And when it comes to who wins in the long run, I would still give it to Brock Lesnar. Who's going to be lying on top?
Sean, this is very interesting because the crux that your entire proposition is currently resting on is only skill level in ground game fighting. Because last week you said that Nicolas Cage in our celebrity deathmatch, who is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, would beat the great Kali, who is 217 centimeters tall and weighs 157 kilograms.
Yeah,
but
he's a ball.
And hold on, was a professional wrestler himself.
So no.
Mobility.
Do you honestly think he's got the mobility of someone like Brock Lesnar?
Brock Lesnar can't even wipe his ass.
No. Hold on. So I watched an interview. Have you guys ever watched a YouTube program called Hot Ones where they do interviews over hot wings and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. So he interviewed Undertaker a couple of weeks ago.
The Undertaker. And he asked him specifically who was the most athletic person you've ever worked with, and he said Brock Lesnar was number one, because he said for his size and mobility, it was impossible what he was able to do. So I don't know what Royce Gracie's like, what he's capable of. I've never gone deep into it, but I'm guessing he's nowhere near the weight class of Brock Lesnar. Sean, what weight was Royce Gracie competing at in UFC? Do you know?
Remember, the Gracies put Royce into the UFC to prove a point. They sent Rickson Gracie, which was the bigger cousin, to Japan to fight in what was that tournament there? I can't remember the name. But they put Royce into the UFC because they wanted to prove how dominant jiu-jitsu was against other martial arts, and that's why he was able to beat people like. I was going to say Yokozuna, but
let's not go there again. Yeah.
Okay, so the difference between Brock Lesnar and that big sumo wrestler is Brock Lesnar is strong, mobile, He understands how to control people's bodies on the ground, and his ground and pound is insane because he's got heavy arms, heavy elbows, heavy fists. It's more than just jiu-jitsu in that case.
Royce Gracie was competing at 80 kilograms in his prime.
Very light.
Okay,
very
light. So Sean, you've got Brock. Craig, what are you saying?
I would also probably go Brock.
Okay, and Em, what are you saying?
I would also say Brock.
Okay.
Purely because that weight, the weight to power ratio,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna turn the tide on.
I wouldn't even fight him. I'd be like,
I'm going to turn the tide on this one, guys. I've seen Royce Gracie beating the likes of Ken Shamrock, who might be slightly lighter than Brock Lesnar, and maybe, okay, fair enough, he was a stand-up striker, but this is the very same mold as Brock Lesnar. And I mean, we're talking about Royce Gracie here, guys. I don't know if you realize that.
He's a bit of royalty.
Okay. I'm going to go with that. But now,
if things were as it were, yes.
So we've got 3-1. Now we're going to flip the script a little bit, Em. What we do now is we go pound for pound. So imagine a hypothetical scenario where both men retain their skill levels as martial artists, but they are effectively the same weight and the same kind of physical structure and frame. Does that change your prediction?
Yes.
Tell us why.
Absolutely. I think Royce Gracie's skill, his ground fighting skill, just that alone. I mean, putting somebody in. Listen, I'm not a professional at grappling, much like I think many of you are, but I think he would just tap him out in a couple of minutes. The way that he'd be able to move and adjust. I mean, Royce Gracie, with his mobility to move around somebody his own size, would be it's apples for apples. I see no reason why he wouldn't win. He wouldn't take that.
Sean, do you second that?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to body size, you do have to consider things like mobility, ability on the ground, things like that, because that does definitely add to the size. Because that it's sort of it increases the effectiveness of size, I suppose, if you've got skill to put alongside that. However, if you've got only skill and no size, I mean, that's the equation. Size and skill will beat size. Size and skill will beat skill. But skill and skill, then it comes down to the individual skills. In that case, then Royce takes it each time, man. Every time.
Yeah, it's the discussion we've had week in and week out. It's when it comes to the elite level, there's a reason guys cut weight. There's a reason guys jump weight classes purely because if they can go 10 pounds lighter, they can dominate that league or that weight class. Khabib. But I'll never stop mentioning that.
He's not a fan.
Not a fan. But that's exactly it. If you're going to do that and you bring Brock Lesnar down to the same size, I think he gets dominated probably. Yeah.
Are you going to switch it around, Jay?
No. So I'm maintaining my stance on that one and going with you guys pound for pound.
Yeah, okay.
Nice.
Cool. Well, I guess we'll never know. So what a fruitless, pointless argument.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why do we do this?
Because it's fun. We're having fun.
We're having fun, guys. Yeah, but this is the beauty of martial arts: is you can have these hypothetical matchups. You really can, and that's the beauty of philosophizing about it.
Yeah. The whole of Facebook and Twitter exists around fake matchups of random crap. So yes.
Anyway, cool.
All right, so let's get back onto the topic at hand. Since we have a karateka, an active, competing, world-class karateka amongst our ranks as we speak. So there's a couple of things that I want to get into in this episode, guys. Now, the first thing, and which is quite interesting to note, is that outside of the realm of karate, outside of the world of karate, and bear in mind, I've been on both sides, right? I've existed in the karate world, in the karate vacuum for most of my teenage life and even before that. And for the past couple of years, I've existed outside of that vacuum, but within the larger universe of martial arts. And for all the debate around karate as an effective form of self-defense, it is still, by far one of the most popular martial arts in the world. Now, I think there's this, I don't know the exact numbers. We're looking at something close to over 50 million participants in over 160 countries. So there's a truly global footprint that we're talking about here. Now, I've often wondered why, especially if, okay, bearing in mind mixed martial arts is a very, very new, a very, very young concept even within the larger spectrum of the timeline of martial arts. But why is that the case? Why do people still to this day continue to train in karate if there's a lot of stigma around it? And how did it get so popular before mixed martial arts even came about? I want to get your guys' views on that. And obviously you especially, Em. I have two theories, but I'll bring those in towards the end.
Cool. I think Em should probably take this one.
Who was that? You guys look like twins. Was that Sean?
That was Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
If you could see the height difference, you'd say otherwise. Yeah.
Then it's easier to tell the difference. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so your question is, why is karate one of the most popular mainstream martial arts, and how do we how is it still that? I think if you look at it holistically, karate is relatively safe, easy to learn, and it requires very little space to be able to practice. So, you don't need, unless you are an owner of a dojo or somebody who teaches karate on a full-time basis or a part-time basis, you don't need a massive 120 square meter dojo to train in. You can take your katas and work them right down to what is it, a 4x4 square, and you can do everything. And the only reason, and what I will use to back that up, is from the latest and the current pandemic that we are in. My dojo in March last year, up until the very end of July, was completely online. Now, not all my students had, like a 9-meter square spot to train in. They had their bedroom with the bed in it, and so, like, to speak of how much space is required to train a martial art, karate, it's minimal, absolutely minimal. Can you train on your own? Yes, absolutely. Is it beneficial to train with somebody else? Certainly. Now, if this is done correctly, it is exceptionally effective, kind of in the greater scheme of things. In modern times, now, in these days, I believe that parents, kind of sign their kids up for karate from a very young age. Like, for example, I have students in my dojo that are 3 years old, all the way up to, late old ages, 50s, 60s, 70s. I believe they get them to start karate and join karate because of the benefits of karate, and that lies in all the discipline, the focus, the ability to concentrate, the ability to perform under pressure, self-respect, respect, and of course self-defense, and a host of others. Now, when you look at these benefits and you apply them to how the children, let's say a child has been doing karate for 6 months, the way you can test these benefits is by simply you can ask the parents, have you noticed a difference in your child? Do they clean their bedroom? Do they, are they on time? Do they brush their teeth on time every morning? Are they cocky with you? Are they more respectful of you? Are they more respectful of the space that they're in? Things like that. That's how you would kind of, establish, gauge it. Correct. I think for adults, when we talk about adults and why they enroll themselves, it's fundamentally for health and fitness predominantly, and of course self-defense. We all want to know and feel safe in ourselves, kind of, that we are happy to walk around in the streets, especially in South Africa. I mean, I don't know what it's like in Dubai. I think, Craig, you live in Dubai.
Yeah, listen, we're not worried about walking
yeah.
on the streets here.
You might get shot or like beheaded or something like that. It's just, I don't know. Am I wrong?
Yes. No, Dubai is very Western and first world and nice. We don't talk badly about Dubai. So I still live here. For me, I see I think why parents enroll their children is the same reason they enroll them into things like Sunday school. It's creating an atmosphere where they can learn morality and certain morals, disciplines, etc., etc. I mean, some people just aren't religious in today's day and age, and karate does that exact same thing, in a different way, I guess. But it teaches them self-defense for future, whereas I probably bad analogy using Sunday school, but it gives them that place to be able to grow in that essence. But what I wanted to ask was also, you mentioned that a lot of adults join, and so you actually joined quite late. For everyone I know who's kind of done karate's always said, yeah, I did it when I was 7 or something like that, and then stopped at 14 or carried on further. But
that's a good 19. Point. It's a good point, because a lot of mixed martial artists who have karate as their base started karate as the their entry point into the world of martial arts at very young ages, like Emma says, 4, 5, 6 years old.
Remember, you know, like when we're talking about children, I don't know how much kind of like sports science you guys are familiar with, or sports psychology or things like that, but from the age anywhere from 3 years, for example, that's where I start teaching. So from 3 to the age of 13, it is scientifically impossible for children to visualize something. So that means you cannot take a child and go, I want you to think, close your eyes and think about performing this movement. I want you to think about stepping forward, blocking and punching, and then throwing out a kick. So, you know, this kind of teaching, that from that perspective of teaching only really applies from adult, you know, and when we talk of adult, we talk of teenagers and above. Let's call it that. Anything younger than that, you know, it's kind of like karate, but cuter. They're not really doing karate. Karate in its very truest form is exceptionally violent and exceptionally malicious. There are some things that we learn that even I'm afraid to teach, because I'm like, no, like this is not okay. You know, I mean, you look at judo, you look at kung fu, and you look at tai chi and aikido and karate, and joint manipulation, finger locks, just finger locks, the attacks to pressure points and things like that. These are dangerous techniques. And to bring a child into that world of an art, I think is incredibly dangerous. So that's why I say, you know, when you're looking at children, there are other means, there are other reasons as to why you would enroll your child. Not everybody's going to enroll their 7-year-old child, and 10 years down the line, they're going to become a world junior champion. You know, 5 years later, they'll become a senior world champion. It doesn't always work like that. There's no reason. You know, I certainly hope that no 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old child is not going to school, or well, I hope they're not going to school and being bullied so much that they feel like they need to generate power like Goliath just to protect themselves at school. I certainly hope that society has not come to that.
Yeah, something I find that is similar to the jiu-jitsu journey is this belt system, the hierarchy of the belts, and that helps in jiu-jitsu, and I imagine it's the same in karate as well. It helps in two ways. One, it introduces a form of hierarchy based on work, based on effort, based on time spent, which is very important. And when people can see a black belt training on the mats, they know that this black belt has put the time into getting to that point. It's something for them to aim to. It's something graphic for them to reach up and grab.
100%.
But the second part is delayed gratification. The fact that it takes effort. Every single belt is a war. Every single belt is its own battle, both mentally, because whether you're going from white to yellow, it's definitely not like going from brown to black, but it's an accomplishment all on its own. And and every single step is a sense of gratification, but earned gratification. And that's something that when I started karate, like I was telling you earlier, Emma, when I started, it was one of the main things I learned from karate is that delayed gratification, knowing that I need to go to karate at least a few times a week. I need to learn this. I need to do that. I need to try and compete. And all of these will get me to the next level. And it's not something you get nowadays. It's not everyone nowadays, even myself, I'm into instant gratification. I mean, all social media is based on instant gratification. So I think harking back to this idea of hierarchy, understanding that there are people who deserve to be in certain positions, not because they got lots of money because their family gave it to them. No, this person has spent the time on the mats. They didn't buy their belts. It's impossible to do that. At least in dojos and gyms that are worth their money.
Not only in Mick dojos.
Yeah.
Mick dojos, that's where you can buy your belts.
So people like Demi Lovato and them who got to purple belt or something in a year.
Demi's blue
she's
belt.
A BJJ practitioner.
She's a BJJ blue belt, but she's actually stopped training for a bit, as far as I know.
But she got it in a year.
We need to get into celebrity deathmatch.
I got mine in a year.
Ah, okay. So you're paying for it too.
What martial art was she doing?
Jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, but remember, the belt systems are different in BJJ. Sean, do you want to give us a quick breakdown?
Yeah, so the belt system comes from the judo belt system. So it goes white, blue, purple, brown, black. So that's essentially.
Okay, but doesn't it? But on a normal given day, when somebody's kind of practicing jiu-jitsu, doesn't it take you a few years to achieve your blue belt?
Technically, yes, it's supposed to take you, not technically, traditionally, on average, it can take you up to 2 years, 2.5 years to get your blue belt. I just compete and I train a lot. The guys I train with are also high level competitors. So I've sort of accelerated through white belt pretty quickly. Quicker than
he also uses
people.
Video to improve himself.
I also use video to improve myself. That is actually one of the main things. Yeah.
But with that, like you've just mentioned now, you train with some of the very best. So if you're looking at that concept, how it is not possible for you to be average or worse. You can only be better. So to be the best, you must train with the best. So if there's some sort of a fast track to your grading, from my perspective, as an instructor, as somebody who owns a dojo, as somebody who sits on grading panels, that makes sense to me. So I wouldn't, if there was a student like you that came into my dojo and trained really hard, exceptionally hard, insisted on training with people older than them, insisted on training with people better than them, and then went to grade, there's no way that I will go out of my way to hold them back. I will give them the grade that they deserve. Because you can already see that passion, you can see that energy, that effort, that want and desire to be a black belt, for example, or to be a 5th-Dan or a 6th-Dan where you get a new colored belt.
And that journey becomes addictive. I'm sure it's the same for karate as well, because every belt isn't just, well, I got a new belt and I'm slightly better than yesterday. No, you're learning new things that when you were a white belt, you sort of saw what was happening, but you didn't understand the underlying concepts and the principles behind what you're trying to do as far as the techniques involved. I love this whole idea of hierarchy, and it's sad that community is trying to get rid of it, because there's so much mentorship, there's so much inspiration. There's a lot that people can grasp onto and really use to grow as individuals. I mean, this is relevant for martial arts, it's relevant for business, it's relevant for anything. If you've got someone, a mentor that has been through the trials and tribulations, they know the shortcuts, they know where you're going to bump your head. It's sad the community is busy removing these sorts of hierarchical structures. Obviously, the bad ones should be removed because they deserve to be removed, but there are ones based on merit, but ones based on hard work that should remain. And I think that's what attracts people to karate. It's what attracts people to other martial arts in general, because it's a process, and it's an addictive process.
I've got a question. I've got a question. So I read something the other day on, I think it was Reddit. So apparently the belt colors come from the principle that your belt should never be washed. I don't know if it's just jiu-jitsu or how far it stretches, but your belt should never be washed. And the more experience you gain, the darker and dirtier your belt became, and that's how it became black and horrible. I'm talking hundreds of years ago. Apparently, that's where the tradition of belt colors come from. I'd love to know if that's true.
No.
Okay, cool.
It makes sense though. If you,
it does.
Yeah. It's a cool urban legend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to tell my little guys that I think that's very creative. We encourage creativity in karate, so you know that's fine. But
you get a gold star.
Yes,
thank you.
In terms of the belt system, or the colored belts, in karate, originally there was no belts. There should be no belts. The belt system is from judo, actually. As far as I understand, it was developed by, who was it, Jay?
I can't pronounce. Even if I knew the name, I couldn't pronounce it.
Yeah.
Yes, it was developed by somebody who built the system.
And basically, when karate landed in Japan and it started becoming part of the school system, or it was starting to be integrated into that system, that they needed to find a way to create that hierarchy, just as Sean described earlier, in terms of, you know, kind of effort versus reward, and that's what you get. So you kind of typically speaking in karate, I would hate somebody to use their belt as a bit
to
of
pull
like,
rank.
like a, to pull rank. I would hate for that. You know, there are some classes that I teach where I just don't wear my belt because I'm not wearing my top. I was taught in my dojo that your belt is simply there to close your gi top. Now, if we go back to Okinawa, where karate originated from, they never trained in karate suits. Karate suits themselves also come from judo. You know what I mean? So I think.
Yeah, but
no.
So
no. There are some people there. There are some people that I think, and Jay, you can please correct me on this, that take their belts and they rub them on rocks and sides of, just to try and get that whiteness of the black belt specifically.
Yeah. Jiu-jitsu is the same. We never had the ranks that we never had the ranks that we have now. It used to only be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically. This is before the Gracies, or I don't know who exactly it was, integrated the judo system into Jiu-Jitsu and sort of customized it. But originally, Helio Gracie, one of the founding sort of brothers of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the Brazilian form of Jiu-Jitsu, there was only two belts, white and blue. White for students, blue for instructors. That was it. And then, like you said, they wanted to start introducing levels, because there were levels, and to be able to distinguish between the levels of fights and being able to match them up for different fights. And that's when things started becoming more commercialized. But yeah, same philosophy in Jiu-Jitsu. The belt is only there to keep your pants up. That's
yeah.
Before you carry on, Sean, you're talking about, I noticed you guys mentioning a lot of it as hierarchy, where people use it as this is my status. Whereas as a learning specialist, I see the point of the belts purely from like Jay mentioned earlier, it's an aspirational thing. Absolutely. So if I was forever going to be on white, for me to stay in that martial art, I would need a lot of motivators. Other
You
than
need something else to
trying
gauge
to climb, to climb it. So
as well, you can beat other people up.
Exactly. As a learning specialist, there's certain ways I measure my success in business, how I measure my success in what I do. And for a martial art, it makes sense to have an aspirational thing to measure your success, not just to have a hierarchy.
Yeah. Especially for things that take years to perfect. But anyway, let's move on.
Okay.
So to cap this off, Craig, before I was so rudely interrupted by you, I was actually going to say that one of the final reasons that I think is a reason for karate's explosion of popularity in the postmodern era, if you will, is Hollywood. So around the 1970s, when martial arts stars were kind of being born and burgeoning in Hollywood, there were a lot of action films and a lot of karatekas for the likes of Joe Louis, for example, Chuck Norris, for example, who were becoming massive stars. And then in the 80s, Karate Kid was produced and released. And that was a massive cultural phenomenon. And after that, people flocked to karate dojos wherever they could find them. So I thought you'd appreciate that, being a movie aficionado, but fuck you.
So wait. Now that you've mentioned movies, I need to know from an actual black belt karateka, how effective is the crane kick?
I think it would be pretty effective.
Don't burst this bubble.
I think I pulled it off before.
It is indefensible, according to legend.
I love that kick.
Okay, it depends what environment you're using. So
Okay.
I think if you're using the street, completely ineffective. If you're in a controlled environment in a dojo, 100% effective.
Okay.
Hey, here's a quick one. Here's a
enough.
quick one to finish with the movie thing. What's a better martial arts movie? Enter the Dragon or Fight Club?
Enter the Dragon.
Okay, well, no, wait. You can't just no. Which
No, Craig, hold on.
No,
Craig,
no.
hold on. We're not getting into this.
No.
Craig, we're not getting into this. We're not getting into this.
Leave it. Just drop it.
Okay, next topic. I want you to tell us a little bit about the difference, and you've alluded to it previously, between traditional karate and sport karate. A nice brief kind of summary, because that's going to lead us into our next point, which I think is really going to get everyone going.
Okay. So when we're referring to sport karate, I'm going to assume that you are making reference to the point scoring system of WKF.
I guess yes, but tournaments in general. So the likes of
All right, super. So when you are looking at sport, listen, there's two facets, sport kumite, sport fighting, and then sport kata. So if we're looking at each system individually, you can't forget the fundamental characteristics of the two. They are the same, in terms of sport karate and traditional karate. We use both hands and feet. So it is exactly the same. I just think that the mentality, the focus, and the purpose of the two different systems is what separates them. So if we're looking at sport karate, sport fighting, okay, the point scoring system is designed to teach you to stop an inch from the face, or you can make light contact to the body. You can make contact with your foot to the head, for example, and you can perform very controlled takedowns within a very controlled environment. That being 4 judges and a center referee who is watching this fight like hawks, with the primary reason of either scoring points or creating penalties, one of the two. When you are looking at kata, or forms, if we can call it forms for some of us who aren't familiar with, the kind of the Goju-Ryu katas or karate katas themselves. they are slightly watered down in terms of the authenticity of the style that they come from. And what I mean by that is that when you are performing in sport karate, you are performing for spectators. You are performing to create interest. You are performing much like dancing. So a lot of the essence, that authenticity of where this kata comes from and what it truly means is slightly lost and replaced by that athletic ability. So how fast can you move? How much impact can you create, through, because remember, in a kata, you aren't fighting against somebody, you are fighting against yourself. You are your opponent.
There's an element of theatrics.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that those are the fundamental differences. If I've answered your question, I'm not sure if I've answered the question correctly.
Sure. Yeah, sure, 100%. So the reason why I want to use that as a base is because what I want to get into now is we did an article on the Strictly Fighters blog a week or two ago, where we profiled a relatively new tournament or league called Karate Combat. It is the world's first professional full contact karate tournament or karate league. Now, traditionally, like Emma was saying, in karate, you in tournament you fight a point scoring system, which is designed to help you, I guess, master the basics of karate fighting, but it is semi-contact, and there's elements of this kind of fighting, such as pulling your punches, such as not being able to make full contact, such as when punching to the face, you're not actually allowed to make contact, or if you do, very, very light. And there's a very specific style to competing in and being very successful in point fighting karate. And because it's a very, very well-developed sport, that is how people train. Now, being somebody who has competed in this type of fighting at a very high level, albeit many, many years ago, and then being taken out of that environment and starting boxing, which is in essence a full contact sport where you spar in full contact simulations and environments on a weekly basis, I found a lot of differences, obviously, but a lot of drawbacks to training most of my life in point fighting when it comes to obviously a completely different martial art. And we've seen that at the elite levels with the likes of the crossover events, Ben Askren being beaten by Jake Paul, Conor McGregor losing to Floyd Mayweather, different disciplines, different arts, right? But here, let's put it this way, Em. What are you, as a traditionalist and a competitor in the martial art of karate, what are your genuine thoughts about point fighting? And then in extension to that, karate fighting as a means of real, authentic, effective self-defense?
So if your question is, can you practice both of these and still be efficient as a self-defense practitioner or somebody who is competent at defending themselves, I would say no, because in order to be the best at something, you need to be able to focus on one thing. So, I don't believe that by practicing like Shibo Ippon. So when you look at semi-contact point fighting, that's what you're referring to in karate. In the karate world, it is Shibo Ippon. So, and that certainly has its place. There are a number of things that you can learn to assist you in MMA, if you're looking at, but I think in the street, because street fighting and real life combat fighting is so variable, it'll be so difficult to assume that your partner will move in a certain way so that you can apply these specific or kind of, kind of preset techniques or techniques that you practice so often that they form part of muscle memory, which is directly a direct result of training point scoring. There are very few techniques that are required to be successful at point scoring. For example, kind of like a front hand punch or a backhand punch or a mawashi or a reverse roundhouse kick, whatever, spinning kick, if you want to call that. So there's your techniques required to be successful at that type of fighting. It's very limited. Whereas when you're looking at full contact, where there are bare knuckles and no bars hold, if I'm looking at starting a martial art that's going to, or if I'm looking at choosing an avenue or a system that allows me to, kind of
assert your will.
Yeah, or just assert myself as somebody who is accustomed to self-defense, and I'm talking about that quite holistically, not style specific. I would far rather focus on full contact with control. Remember, because when I'm working in the dojo or I'm working with somebody, if me and you, Jason, if we are doing, I don't know if you remember, sandangi or yaksuku kumite, these are all pre-arranged. This is consensual fighting. Me and you moving back and forth. We are practicing one movement, and exactly what it's going to be. I know exactly what your attack's going to be. That's consensual. Me and you are fighting together. So it's easy to assume, but whereas in real life, there's no assumptions. It's so variable, and that's where obviously, if I can just pull in later on, I'm hoping that you do pull in the bunkai and the kata side of things. That's where we learn, where we take the precepts and the principles of kata or karate, which are kind of like right in, or they are held within kata. And that is where we learn how to fight. So I would say, kind of full contact if that answers your question. I'm not actually sure if that answers your question.
What do you think of the Karate Combat tournament? Just out of curiosity.
I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, there are still rules though, so that's not kind of
Yeah, it's not MMA.
Those guys had to go full on at each other, and there's no referee. You just say, right, you fight for 2 minutes. There's going to be broken bones and broken necks.
But they're still pretty brutal. I mean, those guys are kicking and hitting the shit out of each other. Gotta love it.
I could probably draw parallels with jiu-jitsu in that sense. The fact that you've got a sport version of the martial art and a more self-defense oriented version. So in jiu-jitsu, there's a big, not disparity, there's a big debate between whether or not sport jiu-jitsu in things like starting on your back, lying down and starting from there is considered a jiu-jitsu guard. It's not something you would necessarily pull off in a fight on the street or in MMA. I mean, a lot of people do because they're really good at it, but it's not something you'd want to do in the street, is lie down and say, come get me, basically. If your first instance is going to be run away. So a lot of the techniques trained in jiu-jitsu, sport jiu-jitsu, when jiu-jitsu is competing against jiu-jitsu, is similar in the sense that it doesn't, the positions you use don't take into account striking most of the time. So you'd be in a position where you could be getting ground and pounded, but because you're training under jiu-jitsu rules, just like you would be doing under sport kumite rules, you can't actually use a ground and pound, just like you can't use a finger poke or whatever it is. Where jiu-jitsu used in MMA, for example, is more like what we considered Gracie jiu-jitsu, not necessarily what we call BJJ, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, because the Gracies have distinguished between the jiu-jitsu that they teach and the jiu-jitsu that other jiu-jitsu academies teach, mainly because of the self-defense aspect. And the Gracie jiu-jitsu has got a lot of a lot fewer options. That's what's interesting about the fact that you said for point scoring, you require less techniques than for street fighting, where jiu-jitsu, it's the other way around. Jiu-jitsu, you use only what works. What doesn't get your face smashed in when you're on the ground. And you'll see the same, the way you'll see the Gracie type techniques being used in MMA, which is quite interesting. The same way you would, for example, with someone like GSP with karate, you would see him using combat, full contact karate techniques in the MMA scenario. It's pretty interesting.
Oh.
But here's the line that I want to draw between both parallels that you've just discussed. So in karate, right, when you training, so we have a thing called application, bunkai, in karate.
I was going to ask what that is.
In essence, what that is where you take the moves that you perform in a kata, and you display and practice what that actually looks like in real life with another person. Mm-hmm. So in kata, you're obviously performing a choreographed sequence of different karate moves and techniques. In bunkai application, you're doing the same thing, but now you've got somebody who's attacking you to show you what that defense is. And you're attacking somebody to show what that technique or that move is, right? So it's, like Emma said, a prearranged, somewhat choreographed display and demonstration of the actual moves in a kata, but it's also how you learn as a next step to train those moves in a very uncultured way. If I have to put it like this, it's kind of the intermediate step, if you will, between learning kata and then fighting in kumite. It's not really, but if I could dumb it down for everyone to understand it. Here's the thing, right?
That's for Craig. That's for Craig.
Yeah. The thing about this, right, is exactly that though. It's prearranged and it's choreographed, right? And we've spoken at length about this on previous shows, about the effectiveness of this type of training. Bear in mind, it's only one aspect of karate, but it is one of the ways that you train how to learn these moves. Now, put that against something like jiu-jitsu, where when you're rolling around on the mats, okay, obviously you've got times and places where you're learning things and you're learning new techniques and new holds and whatever, but so that will be very slow and almost choreographed like what bunkai would be. But the majority of jiu-jitsu is rolling, like you're rolling around in super high pressure, stressful situations. The same with boxing. When you're sparring in boxing, do you know what I mean? You're not pulling punches. You're not trying to stop yourself an inch away from somebody's face. And there's a big difference in that. And this is just me speaking from my personal experience, but it's something I struggle to reconcile. Is in when I started boxing, I was pulling punches naturally. I haven't done karate for 10 years, but naturally when I was sparring someone for the first 2-3 months, like I was pulling punches and everyone was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, hit me in the face. Because I'm hitting you in the face. And they did. They fucking blitzed me. But
that's
you know what I mean? Like, that was a bad habit.
Normally,
that to me now is a bad habit, both in my martial art, but also now where I realize in something that's a lot closer to real life fighting and real life self-defense. In point fighting, where your idea is to get in, score the point, and get out, and then you don't worry about what happens after that because the referee stops the fight. In boxing, when you have that mentality and you go in, okay, cool, you might land a couple of techniques because, like Emma says, point fighting does have benefits to it that teaches you, there's speed, there's accuracy, the ability to get in and out. But then your mentality is, because I did it for so long, okay, cool, I've scored a point and I step out. Now what? I'm kind of subconsciously waiting for somebody to stop the fight. No, the only thing that stopped the fight is the guy's fucking punched my jaw to the back of my neck. Do you know what I mean? So, start off with you again quickly here. I'm almost going to re-ask the question. How effective is karate training? Is the karate syllabus, is the martial art of karate in being a complete system of self-defense? Because the majority of karate styles and the majority of karate training and syllabus doesn't really involve any kind of full-on, full contact, hard, variable sparring.
I must be honest. I think if I must disagree with you, because if that is your opinion of karate, I feel like you may have trained in the wrong place. Because I have full contact karate at my dojo. There is no way that you can perform or use karate pragmatically, practically in the street without performing it by gaining actual real life experience of that technique. And as you mentioned before, all these answers, all these situations we can pull from within karate, we can pull from our kata. Kata, this is exactly what kata was designed for. If you look at karate as a whole, it's actually one of your Instagram posts when somebody said, 50% something or the other, and I was like, nah,
That was Craig.
It's only 1/3. Yeah. If you look at karate from a syllabus perspective or how it works, you start at your key-on base, which is all your basics, your fundamentals, your movements, your stances, how to punch and block and whatever. Then you get to your kata. Okay, and your kata is what presents most of your self-defense scenarios. So where can we take this move in our kata or whatever it is that we're doing and apply that in a real life situation? This is where you ask the questions. This is where you get the answers. And once you have that understanding, that is when you can walk into an arena and fight, regardless of what arena that is. If that arena is your dojo, it's your dojo. If it's the street, it's the street. If it's an MMA cage, it's the MMA cage. Listen, I have no doubt that karateka or MMA practitioners who have done karate before, I don't feel like they are kind of, underqualified to be there. I feel that karate brings a certain set of skills to the floor. I believe that, if you are just a karateka walking into an MMA cage, you might have a few issues.
Just like any other martial arts.
I feel like you should be somewhat upskilled. You need to have a full artillery of skills, karate being maybe, or perhaps one of them. But yeah, if you go back, Jason, if you go back into the historical books of karate and you look at Choji Miyagi, the founder of Goju-Ryu karate, he said through sparring, one will identify the practical meaning of kata. If you look at Gishin Funakoshi, who is the founder or one of the masters of Shotokan karate, that's maybe what you touched on earlier, Sean.
I think I did do Shotokan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. His words, where sparring does not exist apart from the kata, but rather for the practice of the kata, if that makes sense. So all your answers to real life combative situations, if you are a karate practitioner, I believe lie in your kata. So if you feel as a karateka that your sparring is completely separate to your kata, then me and you have different ideas of what karate is.
So I've
got together. They are not separate.
so I've got a question on that from a self-defense perspective. So you mentioned that as with anything else in the world, if you want to become great at one thing, you focus on one thing, right? You can't split your attention between 4 different things, and it's the age-old saying of what
practice 10,000 kicks.
No, the master of none, that one. Jack of all trades and master of none.
Yeah, Craig, good wordsmith. Poetry in motion.
It's a pleasure to watch your brain
operate. So from a self-defense perspective, would you say it's a good idea to mix multiple martial arts and experience? So do karate, do jiu-jitsu, do whatever it takes to learn ground, stand-up game, everything. I have no idea.
Worthwhile learning one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I am a firm believer in cross training. I do not believe in kind of this tunnel vision. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
if you want to be
again,
a legit fighter, you need to be skilled in every type of fight scenario. Karate, by its very essence, is a stand-up martial art. It's a classical martial art. Let's not forget that. Karate is a very classical martial art, which kind of changes your perspective when you understand, kind of what that means. It was, we can't forget why one would practice karate if we go right back to the beginning, Jay. Spiritual development in karate is paramount. Your technical skills are merely a means to an end. That is it. Spirit first, technique second.
I like that philosophy.
And I feel that's coming from a traditional martial arts background. That's something I miss completely in something like boxing. And again, Em, you're very correct in that you're saying, a lot of these things will depend on where you train, who you train with, their philosophies, their experience, their backgrounds. So, it's not a hard and fast set thing. But for example, where I train now in a kickboxing and boxing gym, in the modern definition, I miss that completely. Do you know what I mean? Like when I walk into the gym, I still bow. When I leave the gym, I still bow. There's traditions and kind of spiritual developments and culture that I will always take with me as a martial artist, because I am a traditional martial artist first. And I feel that's lost on a lot of you. I mean, boxing is not a modern martial art, really. It's one of the oldest, but in some of the, I guess in a lot of the disciplines related to MMA, a lot of them on traditional martial arts. So you lose a lot of that.
I suppose it also comes down to the background of the art that you're practicing. Boxing was always a prize fight scenario. It was me against you, let's fight for the money. Whereas karate, judo, jiu-jitsu, it stems from a place of necessity. You need to learn this form of martial arts to protect yourself in war. If you don't, you're going to die. So I think that's where it's connected to spirit, because essentially that's what's separating you from the spirit realm, is your ability to fight in a self-defense scenario. And I think, Emma, I'll echo what you were saying as far as cross training concerned. As far as cross training is concerned, sorry, my language.
CrossFit was the last episode, sure.
Cross training, yeah. So a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys, me included, we will train things like I did Muay Thai for 2 years as well. In the gym, we do also train wrestling, because there's practical applications for takedowns. Jiu-jitsu doesn't focus very much on that. So yeah, absolutely. If you want to be a dominant fighter, you have to be at least, if not competent in an area that isn't your specialty. I can stand with someone, but I can bet you now my 100% priority is to get you to the ground, because that's where I swim. That's my deep ocean that I'm going to drown you in. Whereas you get strikers who are very good at keeping people on their feet. And they are very good at defending those takedowns. I mean, if you want to read more about it, I've got something.
Someone like Adesanya and those guys.
I've got a blog post on striking versus grappling on the website if anyone wants to go and read that. But yeah, I mean, I'll echo that as well. You do need to cross train if you're looking to be more effective. To say that just training karate is going to make you effective in the cage, it just isn't going to be. Just like jiu-jitsu isn't going to be.
One day I want to deep dive in this exact topic with you guys. What's the difference between cross training versus modern day MMA training? Because that's their version of cross training, right? They've tried combining jiu-jitsu here, combining boxing here, but how much of it do you need from? Are they taking the most effective things of each martial art and putting it in there? Or is it more effective going to a jiu-jitsu gym, training jiu-jitsu, doing the same thing in boxing, doing the same thing?
It's Bruce Lee's theory. Remember, most of these guys,
if they're doing it MMA, right,
most of the guys that do MMA, fine, they go to an MMA gym, but they don't train in MMA classes. They train a jiu-jitsu class at an MMA gym. They train a karate class at an MMA gym.
But you'll find that most of these guys who are doing that, except for the young up-and-comers who are, 20, 21, 22 years old, started in a specific martial art because that's what you did back in the day. Before the advent and popularization of mixed martial arts, which as an entity didn't exist before 1993 and even later into the 90s. That's what you did. You picked a martial art and you devoted yourself to it. So it's a very different mindset now. Quick question, Em. Have you actually ever been in a real fight where you've had to defend yourself and your life?
I'm not going to answer that.
I decline to answer.
Pass.
She won't be allowed back into Japan.
Okay. Let me incriminate yourself.
Correct.
Let me shift the question. Have you ever fought somebody in a tournament in Kumite who you knew or was very plain to see came from a different martial arts base that had studied different martial arts and was now competing in karate?
Not from a tournament perspective, no.
Okay.
No.
That's
All
interesting.
karate, just karate. You either Goju-Ryu or Shotokan or Wataru or Shitoru. That's it. One of four. That's it.
Interesting.
I suppose you don't get to your level having started or coming from like jiu-jitsu or something and then just dedicating everything to karate.
You'd have to put
you'd be mixing it up.
Years, decades.
So I mean,
go for it.
Talking about karate base in MMA, I know we're going to be talking about Robert Whittaker in a second because it was his fight with Gastelum this last weekend. He's a black belt in
Goju-Ryu, yeah, that's right.
Black belt in Goju-Ryu, and you could see it in his stance. And I believe a lot of the reason he won that fight is because of that hands down style. The MMA style and the boxing style is up here. Karate is traditionally at the hips, right? And all of his strikes were coming from the bottom. It's coming from the bottom. And it's difficult to see those punches if your hands are up here. Where normally you're looking at punches coming this way. He started here and he came up. It was very
it's more difficult to telegraph. So let's get into that, right? Because that's a very pertinent point. This past weekend, we had Robert Whittaker versus Calvin Gastelum. By the way, I called this to the T.
Yeah, you did.
All right, you can call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things. Okay, I called them to go the full distance and Whittaker to beat him on points. But yeah, Sean, I think you're very right, and you can often see and pick up quite easily those who have a strong karate influence on their MMA style. Robert Whittaker. Probably the biggest proponent of it in the UFC today is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. If you go and watch him, and you go and watch go and Google or YouTube point fighting karate and check what that looks like, and then go and watch Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's fights in the UFC, and you'll see his stance, his ability to get in and out, the crispness of his striking. A lot of that comes from point fighting. You can see it plain as day.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Conor McGregor being one of those, because that's exactly what he does, right? His comes very much.
I think his stance. He often adopts a karate stance, a very wide, low base
and bouncing.
The bouncing back and forth. He didn't do that in his previous fight against Dustin, which is why his legs got chopped the fuck out.
That's why he lost.
That's fair as well.
Well, that's what happens when you stand sideways.
Yeah.
You're like, he has a target. That's what's going to happen.
But by the same virtue, I mean, Sean, we chatted about this earlier this week, that kind of that sideways stance can also be a big benefit, a big advantage even in an MMA fight, and a disadvantage. You know what I mean? We've seen both. Obviously, even in boxing, some people employ that. Floyd Mayweather, for example, had a very side-on boxing stance, along with the shoulder roll.
Very effective, man. I mean, GSP was. I know I mentioned it in last week's podcast, but GSP is a karate guy, and he was talking about the idea of protecting
George St. Pierre, for those who don't know.
From Canada. He was talking about protecting his center line when he's fighting. With boxing, Muay Thai, your center line is there. All your vulnerable things are right in this line, where karate, you're turning side on and you're protecting it with the leading hand and the leading leg. Obviously the leading leg's there to be chopped with leg kicks, but it's a pretty good strategy for preventing getting knocked out. Because remember, if you're face on like this and someone punches you, your head's going to go like this. But if you're side on and someone punches you, you can roll with it a lot easier because you're going with that straight right, which I find really, really interesting. And what's his name? Whitaker was using that distance control strategy very well against Gastelum. What you'll see if you go watch the fight back, he would as Gastelum was throwing his trying to start his combinations, he would just pull back a bit, just out of striking range, and then Gastelum would have to reset, and he'd do that a few times, just reset. Eventually he makes Gastelum overcommit and do that 1-2-3 combination flying into it. So what Whitaker would do is wait for the first one, because he can really time it. He's stepping back each time it happens, so he can pick up on that timing. Then what happened was he waited for him to rush those combinations because he just couldn't get his reach in, Gastelum. And then he'd counter him after the first one because he knows that's what he's going to be doing. He'd either counter it with a short right hook, a straight right, short left hook, straight right. It was beautiful. I mean, it was textbook striking. Even on the ground, I mean, they're both black belts in jiu-jitsu. And Whitaker just did a wonderful job controlling him on the ground. He
was quicker. He had more weapons. He looked like the better, more well-rounded martial artist. But say what you want about Kelvin Gastelum, that man's durability, his heart, and his will to continuously go forward and try and win no matter what he's facing makes him the common denominator in some of the best mixed martial arts fights you will ever see in your life.
Yeah, some of the bloodiest fights you'll see. His fights are very entertaining. Man. I mean, I expected more out of him from this fight, but I think that's a testament to Whitaker's skill. He made Gastelum look like not a subpar striker, but a striker that just couldn't apply his game. And man, it was beautiful to watch. I would go watch it back again.
Yeah, he reminds me of a Nate Diaz fighter. Like, you always know that when Nate Diaz gets in the ring, it's going to be bloody and they're going to go for rounds, and it's just going to be, you guys are just going to beat the shit out of each other. So it's entertaining from that perspective, 100%.
Em, did you watch the fight?
I didn't, unfortunately, no.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one to watch.
Because I have a job. For a living.
So he, like we were saying, Robert started training in Goju at around 7. So it was his introduction into martial arts, and he did it for I think 8 or 9 years before moving on. He's got a black belt in Goju-Ryu karate, BJJ, and Hapkido.
Taekwondo.
And Taekwondo. Yeah, and then we also had the pseudo event. The circus. Circus.
You call it a pseudo event, but which one do you think had the most interest?
Of Triller Fight Club's Jake Paul versus Ben Askren boxing match, if you could call it that.
I saw highlights of that.
Craig, why don't you chat us through that one?
So, Sean, you just said Whitaker's fight had more interest. Bullshit. They just outsold. They just made the top 10 highest selling grossing fights of all time.
It has been reported. I don't know. I mean if that's verified.
I mean the fight, the commentating, the entry, the weigh-in where they had Jake Paul had a huge fucking robot behind him. It was the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen, but you couldn't look away.
It's like a 12-car pileup. It's so bad, but you can't look away.
It was so bad. It was painful, man. You had Snoop Dogg. It had no idea why he was there.
Give me my money. Give me my money.
Exactly. And then you had Oscar De La Hoya that we don't want to talk about because it's a sensitive subject that he probably needs to go to rehab now. The man is struggling. But these guys had no idea what was going on. You could just see the whole promotion was a shit show. And then Ben Askren looked like a fish out of water. He literally walked in and just got pummeled.
Okay, so by virtue of what Craig's saying,
1-2, yeah.
The less said about it, the better. Let's talk about this. Who should Jake Paul fight next? Right, you've got a YouTuber turned professional boxer who is now 3-0 in professional boxing with 3 knockouts, has beaten an MMA fighter. Granted, the other two we don't even really need to speak about. But
he's speak about Askren.
He's the talk, and yet he's the talk of the town.
No,
in boxing and MMA.
He is, but okay. Now I just want to pick up one point before we move on. Is the huge topic of it was fixed? I don't think it was fixed. Okay, like I hope it wasn't, but I've watched Ben Askren's fight. I went back just to see what this guy was capable of when it came to a punching match. The guy was beaten. They beat the living shit out of him, and he went 5 rounds with a lot thinner gloves. Like he went rounds and rounds, and he was bleeding. He literally got pummeled on the ground, and he took a 1-2 from Jake Paul.
I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because he was kneed to the head. So you got to understand something. When you get knocked out once properly, it becomes a circuit in your brain that it becomes an easier option for your brain to now check out. Remember, getting knocked out is a defense mechanism for your brain. It puts you out so that it can allow your body to recover and understand exactly what just happened. And when everything is back to normal, it'll reset you and bring you back to consciousness. Once you've been knocked out once, same as being choked out once, it creates this permanent circuit in your brain that now is a valid option for your brain. And the first time you get knocked again, that's why they say you develop a weak chin, because once you get knocked out once, it's easy to get knocked out again. And that's essentially what happened. It didn't take much. It was a knock on, not even on his chin. It was on the side of his head.
Routine
1-2. He should have just brushed that off and carried on going. If it's not fixed, it's definitely because of that, that circuitry in his brain.
I think he should fight Emma next.
Yeah, I'd pay to see that.
Listen, it's either M or I gotta see a Nunes fight.
Oh,
Nunes
beautiful.
I mean, the next guy to fight Jake Paul, I mean, I would just like to see him in the ring with Ngannou.
There's so much speculation.
You'd like to witness a murder.
I just want to see it. Yes, I just want to see him hit him with the speed of a Ford Escort at full speed. I gotta see it. Imagine. He
sounds like you guys don't like Jake Paul.
No, he's a fucking idiot. He's an asshole. Like I mean,
I just saw pictures of him, and he looks like a wanker.
Yeah, no, listen.
I didn't even watch him fight. Like, well, I just saw him. Like, isn't he a bit of a wannabe Conor McGregor?
Pretty much.
He became famous using Vine, and that he was at the beginning of Vine. And crazy respect to the guy for knowing to get involved there at the time that it boomed the way it did, and the amount of, I mean, the guy made millions, and
also the work it takes to grow that sort of following.
He worked hard to do it, but as a human being, he's an asshole. Like he's almost like a self-proclaimed asshole who's trying to embody the persona.
Like Craig.
Yeah, he's trying to embody the persona of a McGregor and a Mayweather at the same time.
With none of the credentials to his name.
None of the credentials. He's fought a YouTuber. Yeah, he's fought a YouTuber. He's fought an NBA or retired NBA athlete. And now he's fought a retired UFC.
Dad bod.
Yeah, like
reject.
A man who walked in looking like a bag of milk. Like it's
got a dad bod.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the question then. Who should Jake fight now? Should he fight the MMA fighter who's got hands? Somebody who comes from a boxing or at least striking background. There've been a bunch of names mentioned.
Nate Diaz,
Luke Rockhold, Nate Diaz. Should he fight an actual pro fucking boxer with pedigree?
Yes.
I know Tommy Fury's name is being bandied about, the younger brother of heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, who is 5-0 in professional boxing. So also a relative newcomer, but a lifelong boxer and a lifelong fighter. Or should he fight another Piswilly crossover celebrity personality?
I don't know. Just watching the boxing sort of chat rooms and things like, I say chat rooms, or you're living in the 1990s. The boxing.
Well, you are, Sean, because you're a lot older than most of us.
What do you mean? Just watching the boxing community.
So rude.
Yeah. Just watching the boxing community talk about this whole event, they hate it. They say that it draws away from the purity of the
sanctity.
And I tend to agree, but I also like the idea that it's bringing in a whole new fresh audience, because remember, Jake Paul's audience is teenagers to early 20s people, and if it can bring more people into martial arts in general, because they're going to go to the boxing, and then because they saw boxing fighting MMA, they're going to go to MMA. So I think it's good for martial arts in general. I just don't like it. You know what I mean?
but
fair enough.
Yeah, it's
So if the only way to bring sanctity back to boxing is if he fights a boxer. He needs to walk in against Fury. Fury would need to step into the ring with him and just sort this out and just kind of fix what's going on. Yeah.
He's mastered that, boy.
No, he's a machine. There's a reason he's 5-0. He's shredded. Jeez, like
it's a boxer. All right, we need to move on. So next topic on the agenda, and we'll keep this one fairly brief. We have a massive UFC card coming up this weekend. 3 title fights at UFC 261. We've got the rematch between Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal for the welterweight championship.
Rose Namajunas.
We've got Zhang Weili versus Rose Namajunas.
I'm excited for that one.
We've also got Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Andrade. So 2 massive title fights in the women's division between 4 ridiculous fighters, probably 4 of the top 5 or 6 women MMA fighters in the world.
To ever exist, in all honesty. They are unbelievable.
Let's chat about Usman Masvidal.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one, man. There's been so much talk because Usman, after he beat Masvidal the first time, he said Masvidal came in and had a built-in excuse, meaning he only had a few days to prepare, or I don't know how.
Yeah, he didn't have a camp.
He didn't have a fight camp because he came in.
For context, he stepped in on 6 days' notice to fight the champ.
Yeah,
they had bad blood. They had a whole bunch of beef, and then his Usman's originally scheduled bout pulled out. He got coronavirus, so Jorge Masvidal stepped in on 6 days' notice without a full training camp, to fight in a championship.
And he still went 5 rounds
with Kamaru
and lost.
Yeah, but I would still give it to Kamaru just because technically he's a better fighter for me. Masvidal is a brawler. I love his
street fighter. Craig, you'd love him.
Fighter. Yeah, he's a street fighter, and I love that about him. He's a Mirko, and it's a bit of a weird reference for everyone. It's a friend of ours, but he's the type
Mirko
of guy.
Krokop.
Yeah. He's willing to get into a fight if he sees a mate there, he's there. That's the type of guy Masvidal is. But I think
he used to fight with like in the streets, literally in backyards with Kimbo Slice.
Yeah, there's videos on YouTube. If you go look for Masvidal on YouTube, his old videos of him fighting in the back in backyards.
But he's a wanker.
I would give it to Kamaru mainly because Kamaru's his confidence and his effectiveness is just improving every single fight. And he's also now he's shifted gears. He said now he doesn't just want to finish the fight as in get to the end of the fight. He wants to start finishing it on his terms. So I think we're going to start seeing a different Marksman, and I think he's got the capability, he's got the skill, and he's got the mindset, and he's got the determination to actually get. I'll give it to Kamaru all day.
Yeah, Kamaru is one of those that they said has still reached nowhere near his peak, and he's still fighting at half speed. So
scary.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, Masvidal, I like where he's come from and his pedigree and all of that.
He's the BMF.
But
he's the baddest motherfucker.
But he's a wanker. The people he hangs out with, the people he endorses, the people he gets involved with. He was in Jake Paul's corner this whole time. Yeah, it that drives me insane. Why would you go against your own fight division or
he had bad blood with Askren anyway.
He's also too scared to put his BMF belt on the line. So
is that not on?
For additional context, the UFC made a belt just for a single once-off fight between Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz for the title of the baddest motherfucker in the UFC. They literally made a belt that says BMF, baddest motherfucker, which Masvidal won. But because it was a once-off, he's not required to put it on the line. It's not really a legit title or a legit belt. It was more a fun kind of
Yeah, it was also
if you will.
unconvincing.
But now he's too scared to put it on the line. Like, you're the baddest motherfucker in the game. Why would you be scared?
Yeah.
And the shit that he's talking about Usman, well, come on, mate. Put your fucking belt where your mouth is.
But
exactly.
why was there bad blood between him and Asker? And if he literally
they hated each other.
No, but he literally did the fastest knockout in UFC history.
But did you see what he did after he knocked him out?
No.
He literally got on the ground next to him. It was like, hit the ground. It was like, what? He hates him.
Do you have do you want to hazard a guess? Do you know either of the fighters?
I've watched a couple of the previews of these guys that you are referring to. But I would like to put my money on Kamaru.
I'm going to go with all of you guys and agree with you on that one. I think there's levels to this game, right? And he's on one of the top ones.
He's a practitioner.
Sean, tell us about...
Correct.
Do you see anyone taking Usman off there?
Not for now.
In that current division? I don't really see anyone really challenging for that. But anyway.
I'd love to see him fight Wonder Boy at some stage.
It'll be fun to watch,
yeah.
Okay, Sean, tell us about the girls. Who are you excited to watch?
Oh man, Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili. That's gonna be one that I'm really, really interested in seeing what happens, because Rose lost her last fight, but she was champ at one point just before that. She lost her title. But then Zhang Weili she's a different beast altogether. Do you see what she did to what's her name's head?
Joanna.
Still probably known as one of the greatest UFC fights of all time.
I mean, her head was out. Yeah, and I'm actually going to go rewatch this fight before this next fight. I want to watch it.
She had hematomas on her hematomas.
It was crazy. So Rose is extremely technical, very good jiu-jitsu, and Zhang Weili is also very good, very traditionalist as well.
She's the first ever UFC champion from China.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I love both their fight styles, and they are very, very aggressive, both of them. But when Rose is slightly more, she finesses it, which I like. I'm excited, man. It's going to be a good fight.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys. After the last 72 hours in sport, who the fuck knows? Because at this rate, by the end of 2021, the Boston Red Sox are going to be Premier League champions. Yeah. Conor McGregor is going to be fighting Joe Rogan in a Tai Chi match at Old Trafford. And Jake Paul will have won the fucking Masters.
And Man United will be an alcohol brand.
Imagine. McGregor might own United. Imagine.
All right, let's close off with our final installment. It's celebrity deathmatch time.
Yeah, we go.
This has been a pretty nice long episode. This is going to be a good one.
Yes.
What I'm going to do, is the same thing as we did with Legends League, except we've got 50 of the most random celebrities that have dabbled in martial arts before, or actually bona fide martial artists in some form, way or another. So I'm going to hit the tournament draw, and we're going to match two of them up.
Let's go. Let's see.
3, 2, 1. Okay. We have Wiz Khalifa
Oh my God.
versus Christian Bale.
Wiz Khalifa's a jiu-jitsu practitioner, isn't he?
He does practice jiu-jitsu, but he's also very much into Muay Thai, I think.
I'm going to tell you now what their base is.
Christian Bale is right across the board.
He's Batman. What the fuck, bro?
Yeah. He doesn't need any other introduction. He's fucking Batman. I'm Batman.
I did. In this scenario, probably, I don't know.
So,
give me the background.
Wiz has done jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. And Christian Bale, I'm still trying to find, but I mean,
but you also got to ask the question: Christian Bale in which role? Because Christian Bale has weighed 40 kilograms, and Christian Bale has weighed 90.
And he's also been an American Psycho.
Yes,
he studies Wing Chun Kung Fu.
So Emma, who do you think takes this one?
So you got a dope rapper who's dabbled in jiu-jitsu, MMA.
When you say dab, I mean, what is
with their belts?
Please elaborate.
With their belts.
Can we just elaborate on what exactly that means? Because I'm a little bit fearful to give my answer.
I'm going to read you a quote.
Without all the facts.
I can give you some of Wiz Khalifa's background because Joe Rogan's very good friends with him, and they talk very often. And Rogan tends to refer to him when he talks about rappers and martial arts. He's a pretty dedicated martial artist. If you actually see Wiz Khalifa on the boxing bag, on the heavy bag, or even rolling on the ground, he looks like a martial artist. I don't know what Christian Bale looks like as a martial artist.
Christian Bale is also very, very dedicated martial arts. You got to remember one thing about Christian Bale is he is probably the most method actor in Hollywood right now. There is nothing he does with the half measure at all. So if he is a martial artist, he is probably goes fully in on it. So what is his credentials though, Jay? Can you see that?
He just said Kung Fu.
Yeah, so he trains Wing Chun Kung Fu under master instructor Eric Oram. That's about as much as I can pull.
Tony Ferguson practices Wing Chun Kung Fu. And he's
there's
very good.
There's a few MMA fighters. Zhang Wei Li fighting this weekend. Yeah, there's a few of them. Okay, guys, predictions. Come on. What are we saying?
I give it to...
No, let's start with M. Come.
Guest first.
Hazard your guess. If you get it wrong, you'll never be invited back on the show. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah, because this fight's happening.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with Wiz. I'm gonna go with Wiz Khalifa, and I think primarily on the basis that he knows how to fight on the ground.
Yeah.
We all agree that every fight, almost 99.9% of fights, will land on the floor. There is no doubt. So
fair enough.
We'll take the cake.
Fair points. Yeah.
Sean.
Wiz Khalifa. I'll go with the jiu-jitsu guy. I got to stick to jiu-jitsu in this case.
Nah. Christian Bale. Fuck that. It's Batman, dude. Yes, it's fucking Batman.
Jay, what's your call? Give it to the rapper.
No, I had Wiz Khalifa until Craig brought up that very valid last point.
It's fucking Batman.
In all honesty, I'd have to agree with you guys. If there's somebody who has a ground game versus somebody who doesn't, and you're making a prediction, you got to put your money on the grappler.
Dude, he beat Bale.
Absolutely.
Bane. Bale. He beat Bane.
And pound for pound, does that make a difference, or are we sticking to our predictions?
Predictions stick to me.
No. Yeah, Batman, light or heavyweight destroys.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Well, that's us. That concludes us. So what I quickly do want to do is give a big shout out to Em for joining us, for being the first guest on the Strictly Fighters podcast, and also if you're interested in Goju-Ryu karate, check her out, check her website out, go check out her dojo. If you're listening from South Africa, and especially in Johannesburg and Gauteng, and you're interested in karate, Em, why don't you just give us some of your contact details where people can go and check out your dojo and Seishin martial arts?
Sure. So our dojo is based in Rampart Ridge, at 93 Rampart Drive. So I'm sure you could just pop in the Google. It's right down the road from the high school. It's not incredibly difficult to find. Our website is seishinmma.co.za. Our academy's name, should have started with that, is Seishin Martial Arts Academy. So anybody's welcome. Do free classes at any time. Just
nice.
Come through, hang out with us, have some fun. If you dig it, stay. If you don't, go.
Nice. And what we'll do also is, Jay, it will include the links to
in the description
website and social channels, the marketing channels, and those sorts of things. Then everyone can sort of access if they'd like to.
And before you go, a little like, a little share, some comments,
a little subscribe,
share,
ring the bell for notifications.
Comment. Right, ladies, gentlemen, Craig, thanks, guys. And we'll catch you all
also
next
very
week.
rude.
Thanks,